Welcome everyone to this new session, Day 8 Challenge. In this video, we will try to integrate most of what we have learned so far into solution for this particular use case. So today's use case, let's quickly go through it. Sales leadership aims to identify the top 20 customers by total sales in 2024 to enable executive briefings, deliver tailored offers, and drive account-based marketing strategies. Your task is to produce a ranked performance deck with contact details and contacts and total sales. All right. So now this is the sample of the output. Okay. Now there are key things we want to take note here. Going back with our template, what tables are we going to be dealing with here? Now they are really interested in 20 customers. Okay. And then they want the total sales. So when we talk of total sales, either we are looking at the order table or the order detail table. Okay, in this case we'll be focusing on the order table, so we know the table we'll be focusing on. However, also we can see in this output we do have the first and last name, which makes sense. Sometimes they just want to know the contacts, right? So for this data, we know it's in the person table, so we know we have two tables to deal with. Okay, and what futures are we looking at? So they will just one for 2024. We do not have the year in there, but we can derive it. So we know that we need to filter for 2024, and then we know the list of our attribute. Okay, and then there will be a couple of joins because we have more than two tables. Okay, now let's quickly go over the today I'm going to use the data model just so that you can understand what we are doing here. So when you look at the data model, you can see the data model in that documentation in the wiki. But when you look at this data model, this is the attribute right here that we'll be using for our total sales. And as you can see, it's in the sales order header. However, and then also before we go further, we do have the customer ID. However, we still do need the person first and last name here. So from this data model, which is really good for us to see the pictorial view, we can see we don't have any connector between person and this sales order header. Okay, so we have to go through this table, okay, for us to be able to get to this table. Now I just want you guys to note that, and then we'll then go into the lab. Okay, so you see how we see the way we have to kind of solution this particular use case. All right, now that we have an idea of what we need to do, let's go to our lab and then begin the solution. Okay, so now let's first of all look at our fact table here, which is our sales order detail. All right, so select from, let's look for our sales order detail here. So we have under sales, let's look at the tables, and then we should be able to see order header. Sorry, it's gonna be header this case. Now let's run that again to refresh our mind on the attribute we need from this table. So we know that we need the total due, which is going to be our total sale, the sum of that, and also we need the customer ID, which is going to be somewhere in here. You can see the customer ID, and also for the date, remember they told us that they want us to filter by 2024. So for the date, we need the order date as well. Let's first of all pull all those attributes, and then we can then go further to then filter. Okay, so first of all, let's pull in the customer. I'm just going to pull that from here. I like to use the shortcut here so we don't have to type everything. Okay, so let's pull in the customer ID. All right, and also let's pull in the order date. Okay, and then we also need to pull in the total due. Okay, so these are the three attributes we need. Let's run that. Beautiful, beautiful. Now we're gonna create a new because we don't have the year, but we can derive it from this order date. So we're going to create another derived column here, and then the functions we're going to use right now is that we're going to use the extract function. Okay, we're going to use the extract function. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So we'll say extract. All right, and then we'll say year, and feel free to look up this function in this documentation for PostgreSQL, and you should be able to see how the syntax should work. But if you follow this video as well, you should be able to see that as well. So we'll say extract year from, okay, order date. So we're gonna just reference the order date here, okay, and then we're gonna call this year. Okay, all right, and then it should work. Let's see. Now you can see it was able to extract 2022, right? 2022 and 2024. The same thing if we were to deal with month, we can do the same thing for month as well. Okay, extract. Okay, I need to, okay, so we're gonna say month. All right, and then it should just work as expected. You can see it's pulling this month. We can do the same thing for day as well, but we don't need this guy. I just want you guys to know that we could extract the month as well. So we do need this guy, and we can keep it at the very top. So I'm gonna move it to the top. Okay, so it's gonna be our first. If you look at the sample data, you will see that that's what we had as the first column. So we're gonna just drop that in here, and then we're gonna run that again. And remember, we are asked to filter for 2024, and one thing you will see from this is that it's numeric, so meaning that we don't need to put it in any brackets. So we're gonna put a where clause here and say where this equals to 2024, and then we're just gonna run that. All right, so this is great. This is beautiful, guys. And then the other thing we want to do is that we want the total sales. They just don't want the sales by customer ID alone. So we're just gonna drop in here, say sum, and then we'll sum this, and we'll say as total sales. Okay, all right. And then because we're using aggregation here, we need to have the group by. Okay, always remember that. And in this case, we really don't need the order date again. We need these two though, so we just say 1 and 2. All right, and then we can order by, okay, 3. All right, in descending order. 3 in this case will be the total sales, so let's do that. Beautiful, beautiful, guys. And if you go back to the let's just quickly check the answer we have here. You can see we have 475,912 and 29641 as the highest. So let's take a look just to double check to make sure our answer is correct. Okay, so I have to pull that again. Okay, and when you take a look here, you can see the answers is looking right. Now the other last part that we had to add here is that we need to pull in, you know, the first and last name. Like I mentioned before, we have to go through the customer. So let's quickly do that. So we're gonna do a left outer join, okay, to customer, and we have the customer somewhere here. And then here we're gonna say on using the customer ID. So here we have to actually, so for this one, let's call this sales, and then let's call this customer. Okay, and because we have customer ID would appear in both table, so let's just make sure that we explicitly define this column. Yeah, all right, and then the same, we just put in here sales.customer ID, okay, equals to, and then you would just do cost as well dot customer ID. All right, so you can see that is great. We don't need anything from this table actually, but we just want to use it to pull in the first and last name. We're gonna just do the same thing here, copy this, so we don't have to type some of those of words. All right, so here we just need a person, so we just do person dot person. Okay, we can leave it as we can actually call it P. Okay, and then here we just use the person ID, so we leave everything here and we just use person ID. All right, equals to, and then we use P dot person ID as well. And at this point we can then pull in the, all right, we can pull in the first and last name, and then we also pull in the last name as well. All right, so let's before we run that, now we have, these we can see that we have added the first and last name, so meaning that the dimension at this point is going to be this 4 attribute, not just the true attribute at this point. So we're going to increase this one to 3 and 4, and then we're going to just make this one 5, because at this point you can see 1 2 3 4, and this is the fifth one. So this is great. Let's run it. It should work. Now we can see we are pulling the first and last name, and that is exactly what we expected. We'll then copy this, save it somewhere, and we can share with the stakeholders. Guys, I hope you've really enjoyed this. We can also just double check this: Rahul Kas, Anton Karilov. Let's double check our answer, Rahul, and we can see everything is coming as well. We need to put the email address. We forgot that part. Let's quickly make sure we do that. Okay, let's pull in the email address as well. P dot email address, and then at that point we'll make this 5, and then we can make this 6. All right, and that's really it, and our answers would match. I hope you've really enjoyed this session. All right, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next session.